Welcome. Emotions are everywhere. So how can we be smarter with our feelings? The answer is emotional intelligence, or EQ. We're delighted you're watching, because at 6 seconds, we're working towards 1 billion people practicing the skills of emotional intelligence. Can we count you in? Here on 6 Seconds channel, you'll find practical skills for work and life, inspiration for today, and support to build a better future for all.
Welcome, everyone. As every week, I'm delighted to have you join us for a live stream event. Today, we're talking about Pop-Up Festival. If you don't know what that is, you're in for a treat. It's a great online, this year is going to be online. Other years it's been online, in person. It's a huge, the biggest event for kids and parents and everyone really in organizations to really get a chance to experiment with emotional intelligence and learning some of the skills along the way. But really, everything is free and interactive activities, and you'll be delighted to hear more from our panelists, as I am. So I'd like to introduce Joshua Friedman, who's the CEO of 6 Seconds, and he's going to say a few words before we get started.
Thank you, Tommaso, and thank you all for joining. This is a very special one of our live streams because we're kicking off an event that many of you have been involved in over the years, and if not, this is the year to be involved. I want to tell you a little bit about Pop-Up Festival before we get started. We're beyond excited to be launching the 2020 Pop-Up Festival. I think that back in March, when all of a sudden our plans, like so many plans in the world, kind of came to a crashing halt, we weren't sure what we were going to be able to do this year. And so just the fact that we can be here doing this, I'm very grateful that we're still here. And we had a lot of changes. So we started by having a Climate of Emotions conference right before Earth Day. Many of you got to participate in that. And we shared about climate anxiety, and we learned more about that. And we've taken many of the ideas from that event and brought them into focus on Sustainable Development Goal number 13 and launching the Green 13 Pop-Up Festival Kit. And in a moment, Tom from UNICEF Home Office will share a bit about SDG 13 and why that's part of UNICEF's focus for World Children's Day right now. Just a little bit of background in case you're not familiar with World Children's Day and this event. On November 20th, 1959, was a historic moment at the United Nations, the declaration that children have human rights. And maybe it's obvious now, but it wasn't part of international law. And this notion that governments and citizens needed to see children as whole beings was actually a fairly revolutionary notion. 30 years later, on the same day, the Convention on the Rights of the Child was signed into law, the most signed international law in human history. And almost all the countries in the world have agreed to this convention and said that children have these rights that need to be protected by law. And last year, the United Nations General Assembly held a grand celebration for the 30-year anniversary. And we got to be there and hold a pop-up festival at UNICEF headquarters in New York. So as an organization dedicated to emotional intelligence, why are we doing this? We see a tremendous challenge and a tremendous opportunity. All these years later, after signing this law, it's clear that the rights of children are not honored everywhere. We still have children being sold. We still have children working in factories. We still have children who are subjugated. And so it's clear that the law is not enough. We need to find what is the missing ingredient. What is it that will allow us to build a world where these things don't happen? And UNICEF has done incredible work to support children's well-being and to advance this cause. and somehow we need to do more. So maybe it's about heads and hearts. Maybe there's skills that we can bring into our communities. There's skills that every teacher needs, that every parent needs, that every police officer needs, that every flight attendant and truck stop attendant needs, to be able to know what's happening and to be able to support that children's rights will actually flourish everywhere. One of the rights under the CRC, Convention on the Rights of the Child, is the right to have an opinion. And I find this fascinating as a parent, and as a parent of a 19 and 21-year-old now. They have lots of opinions. But if children are going to have the right to an opinion and to express themselves, then what do we as adults need to learn to do? And that's not just an intellectual exercise. We believe that all change starts on the inside. And so if we want to create a world that's worthy of our children, a world where these rights are actually flourishing everywhere, what's the change that we need to do on the inside? That change will change everything. So I would like to welcome our friend and ally from UNICEF, Thomas Sayers, who's going to share a little bit about World Children's Day and a little bit more context on what we're doing here today. Tom.
Thank you so much, Josh. Thank you for the introduction and the invitation. Very pleased to be with everyone today, and very grateful for the work that 6 Seconds and the pop-up festivals have been doing. As Josh said, we had a really great event last year on the 30th anniversary of the convention in UNICEF House. It was full of kids and parents having a great time, and I think everyone that either took part or even walked past saw what 6 Seconds and pop-up do, and we're really grateful for the collaboration. This year will definitely be more challenging than last year, but the work that we do together we're really excited about. So my job today is to tell you a little bit about World Children's Day 2020, and then hopefully that will give you an idea of where pop-up and 6 Seconds and the work that you're doing can come into that and get you excited about this year's event. So I'm going to share my screen with you and talk you through some of our plans. So I'm going to go forward and let me know if there's technical difficulties. But we say that World Children's Day is a day of action for children by children. And this image here kind of encapsulates what the day is about. This young boy from South Sudan is definitely making his voice heard. This is a day for UNICEF and others to listen to the voices of children. As Josh said, they have a right to their opinion. They also have a right to be taken seriously. So we see it as our role to help them amplify their voices and connect to the right people. Very briefly, on last year, just to give you an idea of the scale of World Children's Day, we had 181 UNICEF officers take part out of 191. That's by far our biggest activity by number of countries taking part. We had 110 countries signed to a global pledge recommitting to the Convention of the Rights of the Child, which again is a very high number for something like that. We had 35 countries put new commitments in their national laws for children. We had over 50 national events in countries around the world. And again, just to give you a bit of the idea of the scale, we had landmarks in more than 40 countries, light and blue, in support of child rights. You can see the Empire State Building here, but there were landmarks around the world, which if you go onto our websites, you can see. And this just is to give you a bit of an idea of the scale. World Children's Day is UNICEF's biggest event every year. For World Children's Day, we say that kids are taking over. This is a really core identity of the day since its inception. This means that kids are in the positions that would normally be filled by adults, or positions that where they're taking on the responsibilities that adults should have. This could be anything from the kids being the teacher for the day, kids being the head of a company for a day, kids maybe taking over the house in a day and making the decisions at home. But it also would be something like the climate movement that we see around the world. Kids are taking the responsibility that adults should have been taking, and they'll be the first people to tell you that they're doing that. So we see that as a kids takeover. It's really about responsibility and kids at the forefront. With that in mind, a lot of the content that UNICEF will be producing will have kids and young people right at the center, and we want to see them taking action and proposing their solutions. So World Children's Day 2020 is taking place under some very different circumstances, as you can imagine. We need to be sensitive to the pandemic, and we know that without action, this will become a child rights crisis like we haven't seen before. UNICEF's COVID-19 work falls under the umbrella that we call Reimagine. This is calling on our partners everywhere to build a better world after COVID-19, and really it's about coming out of this crisis better than we came into it, thinking differently about the type of world that we want to live in. And World Children's Day has a really special place within that. We're saying that it's a day to reimagine, and the day that we ask children and young people how they want to reimagine the future. UNICEF, like many organizations of our size and our nature, we fall into a bit of a habit of saying, oh, we've done this research and we know this is important, so please listen to what we're saying. But really on World Children's Day, more than any other day, we want to say, listen to what children and young people are saying. We want to flip that around and say, raise your voices, tell people what you want to happen, and maybe that will just be listened to and happen in the future. As I said, we want to highlight young people's solutions. So it's not just about how it's affecting their lives, but what they're telling us that they need to overcome these challenges that they see. And when we say they're speaking out about the issues that matter to them, some of the things that we've been hearing from children and young people during the COVID-19 pandemic are about education, of course, with all the school closures around the world, about their mental health and how they're kind of coping with that during lockdown and the new challenges that presents. But of course, we know that when we ask children and young people what issues matter to them for the future, climate and environmental issues are going to come out right near the top. Young people for years have been demanding climate action, and that has not stopped at all during the pandemic. Maybe they haven't been out in the streets as much as they used to be, but they've been making their voices heard online. And this has changed their message slightly in that, yes, they're still calling for climate action, but this pandemic presents a new opportunity for the world to kind of reset. So when we talk about the recovery, we need to make sure that it's both green and sustainable, and in the way that young people are telling us they envision the future world. Really, it's them that's going to live in this. So we need to listen to them. And another thing that we're hearing from young people is that they are afraid or they are anxious about climate change for a lot of the same reasons and the same urgency as many people are about COVID-19. So there's a real similarity there between the two crises. So we're also encouraging young people to talk with their parents and to talk with their grandparents. This is an intergenerational issue. We know that COVID-19 affected disproportionately kind of the older generation, whereas climate change is going to be something, as I said, that's going to be affecting the younger generations for years to come. So there's an important intergenerational conversation to be had, particularly about the type of world we want to live in. And when we talk about a sustainable future, as Josh mentioned earlier, we're looking at SDG 13, taking urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. Other similarities with the pandemic that we can draw with climate change, we've seen how a global community can take action. It's by no means perfect in any country and different responses around the world, as we all know, but everyone has a role to play in any kind of global response, whether that's COVID-19 or climate change. And we've also seen personal responsibility at a local scale. Something as simple as putting on a mask has a huge impact on COVID-19. And lifestyle changes, whether it's driving less, taking more public transport, diet, whatever it may be, can have those impacts when they're collective. And just another thing that I wanted to mention when we talk about World Children's Day and some of the things that you'll see this year, we named youth ambassadors and youth advocates. So this was started in 2018 with our Goodwill ambassador, Millie Bobby Brown, who became the youngest UNICEF ambassador ever. But we also work with young people in countries around the world who are less famous than Millie, but for sure speaking out about the issues that matter to them. So these are our youth advocates, and these are the young people that we really try to kind of build their profile, help them with the ways that they are speaking to adults and decision makers, and kind of build our young Avengers, as we call them internally. In 2020, we will of course give a special focus to the youth climate advocates, because we know that they've been raising their own profiles, and we feel that we can help them do that. And another thing that I wanted to mention to you all was our Voices of Youth platform. So this is UNICEF's main platform for young people themselves. And we've been collecting blogs and imagery and everything from young people around the world on how they want to reimagine a better future. And really, this is the go-to place for young people to see how they and their peers are envisaging the future. So I urge you to check it out, and we'll have a few different things happening there. So thank you so much for your time. I hope I've kept the time. And I hope I've given you a good picture of what World Children's Day looks like this year. And once again, thank you so much to Josh and the whole team for everything that you're doing.
Tom, thank you. We're thrilled to be able to support UNICEF. And as we've talked about many times, the day-to-day work of UNICEF is very, very difficult, and dealing with these incredibly tough and heartbreaking issues. And so the chance to get together and to support all of us around the world to actually celebrate children and celebrate the progress, and use that celebration as energy for moving forward. So with that, I want to bring in some of our super mentors, people who've done Pop-Up Festival many times, and they're going to be able to answer questions and share their experiences. So Ayaka, Saugat, and Paulina, thank you for joining us in this conversation, and for all the work you've done to celebrate and share and amplify and add content and help people be aware of Pop-Up Festival. Why do you do that? What's one reason that you're involved in Pop-Up Festival? Ayaka, can we start with you from Japan?
Yeah, it's midnight from Japan. Thank you for having me today. So the one reason, so it's really hard to pick up one, but if I'd say only one, then it's open to everybody else on the earth, everywhere, from all over the world. So this is so fair, and Pop-Up Festival gives chances to everybody else who is caring about children or future. So this is one exciting thing for me about Pop-Up.
Thank you. Saugat, how about you?
So, hi, thank you for this opportunity. And like Ayaka said, it's really hard to choose. There are so many reasons that I get excited for this event. But the thing is, like, as a child, I was not able to share, express my feelings by myself. Like, I had to struggle a lot. And even like I was not so hopeful of getting the adults. I was not being so open with them about what I feel. So I think Pop-Up Festival allows children to express their feelings, and this is what I really am into the favor of. So yeah, that's the reason that I really get connected with the event. Thank you.
Thank you. And Paulina, how about you?
Yeah, like everyone else says, it's so hard to just pick one. But I really think that it's a unique opportunity from a grassroots perspective for every child to get access to emotional intelligence. And my personal purpose in life is really to foster a generation of kids that grow up with kindness and empathy and emotional well-being as like a cornerstone. So I see Pop-Up Festival as a great tool to get that out to all children across the world. And that really gets me engaged.
Tom, you got to see a Pop-Up Festival firsthand, and to watch kids engaging in Pop-Up Festival. So how would you describe a Pop-Up Festival?
I spoke about it a little bit before, but I think the feedback that I got from my colleagues who didn't take part but maybe saw it happening is a good testimony. So I think the first word that I would use is fun. And maybe the second word I use would be inclusive, because it was really great to see children and their parents taking part in something at the same time. And I think maybe the parents learning alongside their children and kind of connecting with each other. But the other thing I would mention also is, and this is something that UNICEF is very focuses on, is results. And we know that pop-up festivals have been so successful around the world, both in terms of the scale of what you're doing and the results that you have from learning with children. And I think that's something that to be very proud of, and the reason that we're happy to partner with you.
I was a little surprised to hear from in the first couple of years, and still hear it now. Sometimes people will say, well, I've been working with these parents to help them get ready to do a pop-up festival, and they were really nervous. And they said things like, well, I never talk to kids about things like this. And then afterwards, they say, it was really fun to talk about how kids were feeling. So good. I'm wondering, in your part of the world, you talked about this, not expressing emotions as a child. What's that like for the kids and adults involved in Pop-Up Festival where you are?
So the major concern over my country is like the parental involvement is almost zero. So they do not actually know. And I think, when we talk about the education, when we talk about the administrators and principals about these issues, then even they are like, okay, so parents are not willing to do this. Even they are like, okay, they're conscious about what children needs to do, what the school needs to do, but they're not conscious about themselves. Like they're not open to their children about the talks that they really need to do about, especially about emotions. So I think I've talked with a couple of the parents that we worked with, and even they express the same. They've not done these kind of stuffs before. And we have the activity on every Wednesday that we do with parents together. And they're kind of like, okay, so we should do something like this. But basically, they need translations, lots of translations in Nepali. But still, they are really encouraged by the things that we really do. And they are like, okay, we are going to do this for like throughout the year, or probably once a week and stuff. And they are always hopeful that we'll be assisting to them.
I am having trouble unmuting myself today. You've been doing a lot of online events and helping parents and educators and doing some projects where you've had kids online as well. And I'm curious about what's something that you've seen or heard from a parent or child that's really touched you or stuck with you about what people are learning in this process.
Yeah, so I have many impressive moments, but so this is a little bit different from like exactly EQ things, but when we had like pop-up online with children from all over Japan, then my son said like, oh, I heard this Japanese for the first time. It means like sorry, it's like language from other side of Japan. So that was so impressive. So I felt like this can be like easier to communicate over the culture, like with different cultures, and like talking with different culture people. It's like we have to use a lot of EQ all the time, and also like when we have like virtual pop-up, we like as adults hosts, we have to be prepared, like how we can engage children over this camera. So we have to use a lot of EQ from the beginning to the end. So this is so good opportunity for children and adults, I think.
Thank you. Paulina, how about for you? What's something that's touched you or inspired you seeing you got to be at UNICEF headquarters last year with kids? And what's something that's inspired or touched you, or that you've heard from a child that's made you say, wow, this is the work we need to do?
Yeah, there are so many inspiring moments throughout the different pop-up festivals that I've been part of and been lucky to be part of, because previous discussions on, not talking about emotions openly and seeing that kids, they want to do this. They're just not given the opportunity and talk about emotions and expressing gratitude or even fear, or we talked about climate anxiety, and they want to be heard. So that's in all of like the moments that I've seen, that's one of the things that I really, really, love seeing, that spark in kids, that they're being heard and that they can express their emotions openly. And one of the activities that I really, really love, and I might be a bit biased because it's Pepe Pal's activity too, but it's the friendship medal, where we ask kids to express why they appreciate someone. It could be their grandma, it could be their teacher, it could be a friend or a neighbor. And it's a way for them to show both why giving compliments are so important, but also to see the joy in someone else, and to see kids give these medals to each other and hang them around the neck. Or if it's a virtual event like it will be this year, where they're posting photos and sharing this love for another person, it's really amazing, and it really makes them feel important and seen and heard, which I love.
I just wanted to go over a couple logistics for those of you who are new to this. If you go to the Pop-Up Festival website on 6seconds.org, and maybe somebody can put the URL in there for us, you'll see that you can go and read a little bit more about it, and then there's a sign-up form. And then after you sign up, you get the link to the Pop-Up Festival kit. And the kit has decorations and activities. And what I'm showing you on the screen right now is the new part of the kit, which is the Green 13 kit. And it's 13 activities that specifically relate to climate anxiety. And there's a lot that UNICEF has done and others have done about the science of climate. But Tom, maybe you could talk for a minute about what you've heard from country offices about why this emotional part of climate is a kind of missing ingredient, and why we're bringing in these emotions of climate change. You did talk about this a little earlier. You have to unmute yourself. It's catching.
Sorry. I was doing it, Josh. I think that we've quite clearly we have a lot of different ways that we talk to young people. Obviously, we're in HQ, so we have sometimes it's second or third hand through some of our offices. But I think there's been a clear trend in recent years of young people wanting to talk about how the climate crisis is making them feel. With the global climate movement, youth climate movement, which was obviously not started by Greta Thunberg, but she became the face of it, and she really shaped the message around it. It's very interesting that she, as a young woman with autism, is really it's the moments where she starts to feel anxious where she most portrays her emotions. So she gave a speech where she spoke about the number of species that were dying off, and she broke down when she was giving that speech. I think it was to the EU, and a lot of these other young climate activists that we're talking to are really highlighting this as an issue that's specific to them. A lot of what's come before is very scientific and fact-based, but young people are bringing their emotions and their feelings into their advocacy, and it makes it easier for people to relate. Maybe older generations were anxious about other issues. Generations back would have been anxious about things like the Cold War, and now this is the issue that young people are speaking up about and saying they feel anxious about. So it's interesting in that regard, and it's our responsibility to kind of respond to what they're telling us. Josh, you did it again.
I did it again. One of the things we learned at the Climate of Emotions conference that was powerful for me one of the young climate activists, Jonah, said every teenager he knows who's involved in climate activism is motivated by climate anxiety. Clover Hogan, who's one of the UNICEF Voices of Youth ambassadors or writers, who was part of that event, talked about anxiety as something we shouldn't be getting rid of. Anxiety is actually something valuable to us. Britt Ray, who is one of the speakers there, has her new book coming out, and she talks about generation dread, but that these so-called negative feelings are actually valuable. They're actually important for motivating change. I'm wondering, any of the panelists, if you have a thought you want to share about that valuing of these difficult feelings and being willing to sit with kids in their difficult feelings as well as the fun ones. Saugat, how about you?
Okay. May I have a pardon, please, because the network is unstable.
Okay. We can come back to you in a second. But the question was really about listening to kids' emotions even when they're difficult. And if you have a thought about that.
Okay. So actually, it was last year. I just wanted to share the experience with you. So it was last year that we were doing the friendship medal thing with the students of grade 4 probably. And we were like explaining it's going on well. It was students were sharing the medals with each other. And we saw one boy weeping behind on the bench. And we asked him what happened, but nobody gave the friendship medal to him. And we were like not prepared for the situation, you know, so it was kind of okay, so what shall we do? So we had some volunteers working together. So we prepared the friendship medal for him, and we do some handshakes, and we were friends now, you know, just to make him feel happy. And then we talked about, with everybody, we talked about empathy, we talked about kindness, and we talked also about why is it important for everyone to absorb what's happening around. Because sometimes might be very busy on what we are doing, and sometimes it might be affecting the other people around us. So, you know, sometimes I think it's important because so many times it's hard for students or for children to express themselves, because it's also hard for us as an adults to express ourselves. So we need to guide them, and we need to give them like the proper way on how to do that, how to express your emotions, how to also understand other people's emotions. So in that sense, it's a kind of a great, things that we've been doing through Pop-Up Festival. And I think it's also important to not like only wait for Pop-Up Festivals to do that, but schools should incorporate these kind of things for like into their curriculum, into the internal curriculum, so that we can foster all of the students emotionally and prepare for their well-being.
I wanted to show you one more part about the kit. And one of the activities that I have really enjoyed is that we have this little puppet theater. Those of you who have been involved in Pop-Up know there are these little characters. And in every activity, what you'll see is that there's some simple instructions or the materials to do the activity. And then there's some discussion questions. And this is something we heard from several of the psychologists and psychiatrists who we interviewed around climate emotions. It was that it's sometimes hard for kids to talk about what they're feeling, and giving them a kind of third person, like one of these little characters. And this question, are you like these characters? And how does that character feel? Gives kids a way to talk about what's going on. Maybe we could take a minute and talk about how this can all work in this virtual context. And Ayaka, maybe you could share what you've been doing with kids and adults online to make Pop-Up Festival, to prepare for Pop-Up Festival in this COVID challenge.
So just a little bit of customizing is needed, I think, so we can be open to make it into virtual ones. Like, so what we love is like color your heart. Just prepare one sheet, one paper, and show in the words list, feeling words list, and put the words, write the words in the paper, and put the color on that words, and color the heart with those colors. So we can easily to make it into virtual ones. And so, and yeah, this is very good points to do and like pop up virtually is like parents, most of the time parents are there with children. So even if adults cannot like get involved too much, but they're there. So they're with children and they are seeing all what they are doing. So they can be in the moment of children are getting into what emotional is or what using emotion is. So this is really powerful thing, like doing virtually. And still kids are so like genius to use like these kind of things, internet or like using like computers. So it's so amazing, like fluent. And I'm always like impressed by how they are getting into us. So nothing difficult.
We're going to be adding one more activity to the Green 13 kit, which is UNICEF is doing a project this year around this theme that Tom mentioned of Reimagine. And so we're going to be adding, they've actually given us instructions that they're sending out to kids everywhere. We're just going to add it to Pop-Up Festival as another activity. Tom, could you just take a moment and explain the Reimagine pictures, illustrations?
Sure. So yeah, this is exciting for us. So we call it the Reimagine Illustration Challenge, and we're asking young people around the world to draw the future that they want to see. And the reason that we're doing that is because illustrations and visual content is is the best performing for us. We've seen the most engagements with a young audience. Also, we know it's a behavior that young people already have. And there are communities online where they are drawing and illustrating, but also there's no language or cultural barriers to it. So it's really interesting to see if you're a young child in Malawi, the images that are maybe drawn by a young child in Brazil or wherever it may be. And we're asking young people to draw these. It's not a competition. It's not about skill at all. We want people who aren't good drawers or illustrators to take part. Also, it's really about the visions for the future, and we think most children will come with a positive vision of the future, and will be able to kind of flood the internet with these positive visions. We ask young people over 13 to post it on their Instagram, but if they're under that, then maybe the parents or other people that they know can do it. But that's what it's about, and it's meant to be broad so anyone can take part.
So we just put the hashtag in the chat, but the instructions will be in the Pop-Up Festival as one of our Green 13 activities that I think is an example of something anybody can do. The Pop-Up Festival activities, I have hanging here in the office some Pop-Up Festival pieces. They're things that can be done anywhere. And I want to show you in a minute the Pop-Up Festival map. People do Pop-Up Festival in big cities. They do it on tiny atolls. There's a Pop-Up Festival that happens in the middle of a national park in South Africa. They're really everywhere. And so the materials are very, very simple. I wanted to ask you, and Paulina, maybe we could start with you, about the larger implication of this. I mean, this is fun, it's playful, but so what? I've had people say, yeah, this seems like a really nice thing to do, but is it more than that?
It's definitely more than that. It's, emotional intelligence is the foundation of not only who we are, but also who we show up as and how we impact others, and also our general well-being in life. And Peppy Pals, which is the company that I work for, we teach kids in the early ages of already 2 years old emotional intelligence through play and in a very visual and playful way, and giving kids the opportunity to do that through Pop-Up Festival from not only the age of 2, but up until 18 years old, is a way to make sure that they have the foundation to be strong, to be happy, to be empathic, and to shape the future world that we would like to see. And I would say that this new activity that we're adding this year is amazing, because the kids that we're talking about are the ones that will create the future, and they will need the skills to create a kind and an empathic future, which is what the pop-up festival is all about. So it's really so much bigger than just a fun activity that you could do for one day or every day if you would like. But it has such an important mission and purpose, which I think is overlooked in some areas.
So one of my favorite of the Sustainable Development Goals, and by the way, those of you who haven't been in the Pop-Up Festival kit yet, each of the Sustainable Development Goals, you can sort the activities by a Sustainable Development Goal, and they're also in over 30 languages, entirely done by volunteers. And some of the activities are translated in some languages, some in others. There are over 70 in the kit now, and it keeps growing because partners, as Paulina said, Peppy Pals contributed a bunch of activities. Different partners have contributed activities. SDG 17. Tom, could you just explain what that means?
You're testing me too much. I have to Google.
That's I can grab my SDG picture here.
Okay, no, we got it. Partnerships. That I thought it was.
So it's the one that's partnership for the goals.
Yeah, it's the only one that's probably the most confusing one. It's the only one that's not a theme or a topic, and is more about how we do it. So it's really about like the practical part of achieving the goals. We say that the only way they can be achieved is through partnership, and that spans all types. So obviously this is a big ask to governments as well, to work with the civil society sector, the private sector, to achieve the SDGs. But of course our partnership would be part of doing that as well. And I think the key element of that is that stronger than the sum of the parts, right? So we wouldn't be able to reach the same amount of people with the messaging that we have without the partnership that we have with you, for example. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes, and one of the things that I love about this is that this right here we are doing SDG 17.
Right.
And here we are with people from around the world, and people who are participating in the chat from around the world. And Saugat, maybe you could share a little bit about how Pop-Up Festival has helped you build connections in your country and region, and how this kind of SDG 17, how Pop-Up is helping you build this kind of collaboration and network.
Okay, so basically, since we started last year, we only reached up to 3 schools, but we had a magnificent number of participants. So this year, also because it's virtual, though it's really challenging, we are enriched with about 18 schools, and we've come across the people from different socio-cultural background. And they have their own challenges. Like some schools, they mention that they do not have the access to internet. So they need to go to school, the community, they will gather the students and they will do the activities. So in this way, I think it's going on really well with us, and it's very productive as well. But also a little bit being aware about, we are so not conscious about what as an individual we can do, and what are the effects that it can result. So with these activities that we're doing, so it's bringing on the ideas of the partnership between the community, partnership between their family first, and then partnership between the beliefs that they have for the change, and also making children aware about what are certain things that what as an individual I can do, and the ripple effects of it. If I'm starting, then other people are also starting. And this is the sense that we are trying to give, and that's the sense that we are also getting from the students, because from the feedbacks that we get and from the works that we are getting, that they are doing. So it's kind of amazing. Yeah.
I love that. And then as connected.
Mhm.
Paulina, I know you have to get to another meeting. We're sorry that you have to leave. So you get your final word in here. What do you want to say before you head off about pop-up and partnerships and emotions?
I just want to say, share the love and spread the magic. And everyone that's listening, make sure you invite at least one person, because we all know that we all know one person that we can invite, and that person can impact 1 or 10 kids, and that will be amazing for that child or for those children. So that's my ending scene, and I'm so happy to be part of this. Thank you so much for inviting me.
And thank you for all of your incredible energy and partnership in this project. To me, this is a great example of SDG 17 is getting to work together. Your network and all of the way that we've been able to bring people together around this work.
Mm-hmm. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Paulina. Ayaka, how about for you? What are you seeing in terms of building connection and building coalition and building community as part of maybe the larger impact beyond the day of the pop-up festival? How is this community building happening in your network?
So I got so shocked by the report of the beginning of this month. Like UNICEF had that report about well-being, and there it says like many children are feeling like isolated, and they have it seems like lack of the feeling of safety. So I felt it's so big issue, and also like pop-up festival can help it. So last year I had a really good emotional moment with 5-year-old children. So we had like color your heart activity together, and there was like a super energetic boy inside in the class, and his heart has a lot of vivid color, but has in center of the heart there was a very small but soft blue. And one girl talked to him, and she said like, "Hey, I knew that you always have that soft color inside you." And he showed like really shy face, and teachers felt like, oh, this is the feeling of acceptance. So this can be like this beginning of building community or connecting with each other like mentally. So I think pop-up festival is really powerful. It's from this place to the world. So I think this is like super powerful, impactful, meaningful, even for everyone, for every single person, even adults.
Well, yeah, I think, and thank you for bringing up the UNICEF report and the Cigna study on mental health and well-being in the world. We seem to have a dramatically increasing level of stress and anxiety among young children and adults. And it's not surprising, given the isolation that people have from physical distancing, that with this physical distancing, we also have more loneliness. And even before the pandemic, more than half of people in the Cigna study last year reported feeling lonely. And loneliness is one of the bellwethers, the signals of mental health crisis, because we are not meant to be alone. Tom, do you want to share anything more about that and what UNICEF has been talking about around mental health and well-being? I know it's not on our script for today, but anything you want to add about that?
Sure. So the report that Ayaka is referring to is, I believe, our report card, which is about children in more economically developed countries. So as mentioned, and as the report says, that anxiety and concerns about well-being is increasing in those countries. But it's more difficult to collect that kind of data from other countries, but I think we will be on fairly safe ground to say that you would expect that to be rising also. And I think when we talk about anxiety and emotions. And the work that Pop-Up Festival does, one of the important things that comes through is empathy. And again, when we talk about partnership with the goals, how can we have a global partnership? How can we relate to things that are happening around the world without that empathy? So I feel like this would be a really important part of the work that that 6 Seconds does, and other organizations like yourselves do, to build that empathy and build that global community that is working towards these common goals that we call the SDGs. So yeah, I think that, and I'm trying kind of answering like a few different questions at once, but it's not just a fun thing. The fun is a bonus, and that development that we're working towards is couldn't be more important.
We have a little, we've started to try to collect some data about Pop-Up Festival. When we started this, we didn't realize how big it was going to be. And I wanted to share with everyone, in case you hadn't seen it, the Pop-Up Festival map. I don't know where I put the map, but it's in all these places. So we started collecting some data about what people are experiencing. And one of the key indicators for mental health and well-being is that you have people you can talk to. And so we've been asking about that. Another key indicator is that you have a support network. So we've been asking about that. And also about tools that people have for having these conversations, not as clinicians, but as just in our ordinary lives. And what we found is that compared before and after pop-up, people are expressing a dramatic increase in those things. And so we actually have a survey that's going out this year more broadly to everybody involved in Pop-Up Festival to ask them beforehand, where are you on these things? And then we're going to ask again afterwards. What's the skill, if you could wave your magic wand, what's the skill? I want 1 million children to participate in Pop-Up Festival this year, which frankly seems quite challenging in COVID times, but our team in China has said, oh, we're doubling last year, so okay. And Sauga, you just said you went from 3 schools to 18 schools. So, and I know, Ayaka, you've been doing all of these sessions already, and we have volunteers from all over the world who are already doing sessions. If you look on our calendar, maybe somebody on the 6 Seconds team could post in the chat the link to the calendar. There are already free sessions happening every week to help parents and teachers and community workers and nurses and doctors and people in libraries and museums learn about these activities. So if we have 1 million children involved this year, and you could just make one wish to say, what would you like them to learn? Who wants to go first?
I can always go first.
Great.
I think call it a skill, the ability to work together is something that maybe children have been missing out on. And the focus that the pop-up festivals will give to those collaborations will be super valuable. So to me, it's that ability to work together and to discuss together, to move towards like a common goal. That's what we see from the young activists around the world. And again, I think maybe something that has been missed out on from kids having to work at home. So that's my answer.
Thank you. And I know working together is one of the powerful ways we build community. And when we build community, we're less lonely. And I see Paige Dest is here in the chat, and Paige is our mentor, our super mentor coordinator, super mentor. Thank you, Paige. And anybody who wants to do Pop-Up Festival can have a mentor to help. And Paige coordinates that. And we have mentors all over the world who've said, yeah, I'm thrilled to help somebody figure out how to do this. And so any of you who are watching, if you want to participate in Pop-Up Festival, it can be with 3 kids around the kitchen table. It can be with hundreds of kids online and through schools. You can do Pop-Up with a family at home. You can do Pop-Up virtually in a group. You can do Pop-Up in a distributed way in communities, as Sauga was saying. just take a look at the map here for a second. This is where Pop-Up Festival happened last year, and we hope in most of these dots will continue this year. And you can see there are just a lot of dots on the map, and we can kind of zoom in almost anywhere in the world, and we can see people who are doing Pop-Up Festival. And you know, some tiny islands have people doing Pop-Up Festival, and some big cities have people doing Pop-Up Festival. And so you can explore the map and you can search and see who's around you. And this year, one of the other things we're going to be doing is asking people when they sign up, is it okay if we share your contact information with people in your region, so we can work on this SDG 17 even more of building connection and coalition. So I'll put that in the chat. Saugat, Ayaka, what's your wish for kids in Pop-Up Festival?
Okay, so with every schools that we're working with, we're trying to focus on 4 core skills, like Thomas also explained a little bit. So we are focusing much on communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. So these 4 things that we are focusing on. And I wish our children to be more kind and resilient. So that's
those
the
go
wish for
together.
me.
When we feel kindness from others and we're able to be kind, we have community support, which we know is one of the keys to resilience. Ayaka?
Well, so this year my theme is like, let them feel safe, and they're never be isolated, and we are always welcome them, and so they're welcome. So, and like Sagan and I did last month, but so because this year COVID gave us the opportunity to collaborate together over the Zoom, so we had collaborative pop-up for Nepal children. So this is amazing. So maybe we can have like collaborative over cultural pop-up this year. This wasn't happen last year. I think it was really difficult to go, like to get flight ticket to have like in-person cross-cultural pop-up. So this is amazing thing. And as Josh said and the page said on chat, but we are so open to have new people and we are ready to help people. So let's ask Paige first, and we are here. So just be excited to join, like jump in this pop-up festival this year.
My wish is last year there was the first Emotional Intelligence Conference at the United Nations headquarters. And Patty Friedman in her keynote talked about the fact that if we really want children to learn these skills, we need to learn these skills. And when I say we, it doesn't even matter if you're around children. Like I'm an uncle. I'm a dad, but my kids are older. I work with people who work with children. So if I practice and learn these skills, then I influence people who influence kids. And I think that this is an important piece for me, is that recognizing whether you're in an office, whether you're in a city government, these are skills for all of us. This is a project for all of us. And we actually have a ton of the activities in Pop-Up Festival that are for adults. And they're the same activities we've used for 24 years teaching adults about emotional intelligence. And so you literally, anyone can participate in this. And the impact when we do this all over the world is that we change the context. And that's what systems level work is all about. Well, anyone else have one more final word they want to share?
Could I very quickly? Firstly, just again, say thank you to everyone that's giving up their time. I think I'm sure there's a lot of people on the call who took part last year, and just to say on behalf of UNICEF, we're so grateful to you for that. Also, like to say this is really challenging, not for kids only, but for adults too. So, just everyone remember to look after yourselves and don't take too much on extra. UNICEF will be happy with whatever comes from this year, I'm sure. So just to say that. And then also Ayaka just touched on it slightly. Maybe this is an opportunity to involve kids who haven't been involved before, and think about those kids who maybe can't attend physical events. So we talk a lot about new normal, and like people are getting bored of Zoom calls maybe, but like we need to move past that. Like this is going to happen for a while longer. So let's think about it as an opportunity, and how we can reach other kids who we haven't been able to before.
And we will make sure they are not bored on pop-up.
Well, exactly. This is a good thing.
Because when you have something called a pop-up festival,
yeah, it's different for people. The fun Zoom, the fun option.
The fun Zoom. Tom, thank you for that, and again for all your support and letting us be part of the work of World Children's Day. So thank you all, panelists, and thank you all for joining. Those who are watching, if you're watching the recording, down below you can put questions. We love answering questions. You'll see in the chat some links that we've put, and we'll also put all those links in the description of the video so that you can easily access them and go right to the free online events that are happening and to the kit and get the resources that to be able to share this with your students or children or people in your community. So with that, Tommaso, back to you, and we'll see you all online soon for Pop-Up 2020.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you all the panelists for giving us this experience of really understanding how Pop-Up is different this year, and really what is Pop-Up all about? What are the goals? What is the impact that we can make? And it's really important to me also that we don't forget that playing doesn't mean that the work is not important. It doesn't mean that the work is not serious. It's actually a great way to engage our minds, our hearts, and as adults and as kids. We're not that different after all. And I think this connects back to the idea that we said that we need to listen. We need to allow kids and children around the world to express their voice. And I think the best way to do that is be on the same level and like take ourselves a little less serious sometime and be willing to jump on and play a game and then bring in some important things along the way. So this is a great opportunity, and I really encourage people in the corporate world to host something with their employees and their families and be creative. There are so many opportunities this year, even though it's a different year than other years. I think there is a lot that can be done. If you want to support 6 Seconds and what we do, I'd love for you to get subscribed to our channel and stay up to speed to our new events and join our next live streams. So subscribe and like this video and share it, tell your friends. And we hope to see you next week for another live stream. Thank you.
If this was helpful, would you please comment, like, share, and subscribe? The Emotional Intelligence Network is your community to grow and practice EQ. At 6 Seconds, that means being smarter with feelings. And we're here to provide practical, proven EQ tools so workplaces, schools, and people can thrive everywhere in the world. Be sure to visit 6seconds.org to find the complete suite of resources, assessments, and programs. Thank you for watching.